Hello everyone, welcome to 300 subscribers. Thank you guys so much. As a special gift, here is my recreation of the episode 50 cake scene. Not that I'm gonna go out of my way to buy a whole 12-inch cake for this, but thank you guys so much. You'll see here I have there in the base forms. I don't go out of my way to buy the really expensive Japanese exclusive. You're gonna see some in this video, the ones that I thought were just irreplaceable. So much has happened, quite a few videos, a lot of shorts. I'm really happy you guys enjoy all the collection stuff. In particular, I gotta say, the big one I'm pretty proud of is the Alice video. I think that one came out really well for just something I was just really passionate about, and it's really great to see you guys are passionate about that too. And without further ado, let's get started. It's a long video to cover. Up first, we have Shadow Vulcan, so we have Subterra, Darkest Translucent, and Helios. I have to say, I think the Darkest is actually rarer than the Translucent. I really like just how it pops out against the black. So very, very unique situation in which we have more Translucents. So I think I've got 2 or 3 of him. But hey, I like that. I like the concept that we have more Translucents than less. Next we have regular Vulcan, so I have the Pyrus and the Subterra. I gotta say, he was a terribly designed Bakugan, just being so top heavy. I'm very, very partial to the Pyrus because he was one of the first Bakugans I got when I was a kid for myself, and I played with him so much, this pump action feature. But also the sheer fact that I don't know if anybody knows this, that he can actually pivot his feet. So this was really interesting to me that I only ever grew up with the Pyrus, so it wasn't many years later when I got the Subterra that I was like, wow, this is what he's supposed to look like to everybody, because for me, I grew up with the Pyrus. Up next we have Wilda, so Pyrus, Darkest, Ventus battle damage, Subterra, and Legacy Aquas. I gotta say, Pyrus is kind of rare, actually, not gonna lie. I don't think I see him too often. And the battle damaged one is interesting too. I have to say, this one's a really deep shade of battle damaged. Magma Wilda, so battle damaged. Baku Steel. Baku Flip. And Translucent. I surprisingly do not think I have a non-Subterra Magma Wilda. I think they're all Subterra, so I find that absolutely hilarious. I also believe I had these two since I was a kid, so he's very special to me, the Translucent one. I grew up with him a lot, and this is what really got me interested in Translucents, and then how I got my iconic Ravenoid today. Nemus, so Chaos. Aquas, Pyrus, Subterra battle damaged, and Clear. I'm sure many of you will remember Clear Nemus in my repair video. He's still here. Absolutely gorgeous. We do not have a lot of clear new Vestroia Bakugan. Definitely my favorite just because I worked on him for so long, and I gotta say, I think he came out really well. For Mega Nemus, I think it is literally only the Helios. I wanted to double check this myself, but I'm not surprised. For some reason, I collected an astounding amount of clowns. So there is no surprise that you just, on average, just do not pick up Mega Nemesis in general. Percival, we have Darkest, Pyrus, Aquas, Subterra, and Pyrus Bronze. Something I think is really cool about the bronze is the fact that there's absolutely no color except for the inside. I think you notice this a lot more with the bronze Dragonoid. But yeah, it's completely devoid of any color. I will note that I do not have the Vortex. I don't care about collecting as many special attacks for new Vestroia as I do other generations. So I'm just being pretty chill about it. If I do find one that I like, I will pick it up, but I'm not particularly worried. For Midnight Percival, I have Chaos, Darkest, and Aquas. Ironically, despite this guy being super common, he's just so common in Darkest. Is like finding any other attribute is just rare in general. For Alpha, I think it's the same deal. I think I only have a bunch of Darkest. However, I do have one that I really like here, which is the Clear Alpha. Really, really good magnet, and I love how the clear contrasts with the very fine, with the very minute colors that it has. Ingram, I just have Chaos and Battle Damaged. If you saw my previous post, I did actually wipe off the battle damage on mine just because this was taking way too long for me to find a Ventus Ingram. And I was plenty happy to just clean it off and make it look good. Surprisingly, this one has a little bit of a strong spring to it if you remember that brawl. It's really insane. You know, for not having a boost feature, he almost feels like a special attack boost. Boost Ingram, we have Subterra, Pyrus, and Ventus. People don't like his tail flap, but I really do appreciate the fact that they actually brought back the jump gimmick. I'm wondering if I can do it. It's kind of difficult, not gonna lie, after trying it a couple times. But I think they did make it just a little bit easier with this. So you're just trying to roll this and make sure that the tail hits the floor as you roll it. For Cosmic Ingram, we have Aquas, Subterra, Pyrus. This one, however, is the Legacy one. You can tell by the bright yellows. Darkest, and Ventus. Cosmic has a lore in which it's like the bird form of Ingram, so it's not like, it's usually the one he turns into when he's like especially attaching to his trap form. And they really made a lot of effort with like these extra tail flaps. It's almost a shame that we didn't get to see Cosmic on screen because I think it's quite a beautiful bird. You just don't get to appreciate it because it's so common. Spin Ravenoid, let's see if mine still work. We have here the Ventus and the Subterra. I got very lucky getting the Ventus really early on as a kid. It was just a coincidence that the one I got just happened to be Ventus, which was great. Subterra one I picked up from a collection later. This one was not mine. Elfin, we have here Subterra and Aquas. I gotta say, the Subterra one was also one that I had as a kid. As you can see, I had a lot of Subterra Bakugan when I was growing up. And this one absolutely impressed me. The concept that somebody could go as low as 300 just really goes to show how bad some of these attributes are. I do want to get one with the attribute wheel, so my Elfin is the one with the G-Power wheel. On the other hand, I have a lot of dual Elfins. But not duplicating them, we have Aquas, Chaos, Translucent Pyrus, And this one, which is really special, this is Revolution Dual Elfin. So what's different about Revolution that I got her in a collection is the fact that she changes both her attribute and her G power. Very, very difficult, honestly, to justify ever using her, because switching between 3 G powers, which I believe are Maxus Helios, Subterra, and then switching between 3 to 4 G powers is just really difficult to justify. Also, mine just does not revolve too much. Just barely a little bit. See, now I got the Helios 760. So she's alright for a Revolution. It's just a double Revolution just feels really bad. Neo Dragonoid, we have Pyrus, Helios, Aquas, Subterra, Bronze, Translucent, what I think is solar or light. I want to say solar. And as you guys would remember, Vortex. Vortex came out in our very first Brawl v Jordy, where both of us had a Neo Dragonoid Vortex. Absolutely iconic. You can tell it's a Vortex by that Rev and these double black dots. So every single Vortex, Percival or Dragonoid has the double dots on them. And like I was mentioning, the bronze, it is completely bronze on the outside. So even though there's yellow markings here, they do keep it bronze even on these horns, which I think is really interesting for the design. Spin Dragonoid, just the one. This is not the one from my repair video. I actually have 2 Spin Dragonoids, coincidentally both Pyrus. But I am very, very surprised by that one. At the time of this video, I think that short has almost 2,000 views, which I was very surprised that that one is the one that really blew off. I am very, very proud of that fact, because that's one I spent many days on, and I want to say that it clearly showed. Hyper Dragonoid, Pyrus, Core, I believe, Clear, Legacy Gundalian, and Translucent Subterra. I really hate how the head sticks out on this one. It's so annoying to close. In particular, I love this Subterra one. Again, I just have an absolute bias toward my Subterra boys. I have so many of them. But I'll also just give a shout out to the Legacy. You don't normally expect them to print a Bakugan like this, right? A very minor character. So I thought that was really cool. Ultra Dragonoid Typhoon. I mix them up with Orbit Helios so much, it is to a fault. You can see here the double dots that they made. And there's just something about his design that's just so majestic. And the way how he opens too, it's not like a hard spin, it's a very soft one. Despite being a Typhoon. It's so empty, but it's so serene. And I really like that. None of the others really do it for me. Golly, I wish I had one in Pyrus, but I am just happy even just having one. This came from a collection that it was a pretty big investment, but when I saw this, I'm like, I've never seen anybody else have this ever. Pyro Dragonoid, I have Ventus, Chaos, Darkus, and Solar Pyrus. This one has a broken spring, so I have to open it manually. But I think it's absolutely gorgeous that I still have to include it anyways. If you are an early viewer, you will also remember Pyro Dragonoid is also one of the earliest videos I did on the Baku Repair series, as you can tell by the tail right there. Brontes, we have Chaos, Pyrus, Subterra, Darkus, and Ventus. it is honestly amazing how strong your average Brontes is. Like, look at this one, 670. Despite it being the pre-evolution, I'm actually quite surprised at how they are honestly quite viable. There have been many times in deck building where I've thought, wow, I could actually use this one. Okay, that one's 400. But there's been a couple times where I've looked at a Brontes and I'm like, huh, I might actually play with that. Mega Brontes. We have foul damage, not that mine really shows though. Chaos. Darkus. And Translucent Aquas. Boy, 3 for 4. So many problems with Brontes. I have so many Mega Brontes, but they all have the same problem of the back flap just breaking, so I'm very happy that of all of them, the Translucent Aquas seems to be perfect, but he's 550, so I can never find an excuse to use him. Alto Brontes, we have Chaos Battle Damaged, Translucent Pyrus, Flip Chaos, and Baku Steel Helios. Although his latch, I'm still trying to fix that, so I gotta say, I absolutely love the Translucent. There's just something really iconic about it. 680 is very nice. I am just trying to find a way to use him. This one, however, was one of my very first Bakugan, and I had no idea that it was a flip. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool, he looks different. This is one of my oldest ones, and I would love to use him. It's just he's so weak. He's 520, so I never ever thought I would find a way to use him, and flips don't have any special treatment bonuses or anything. Hades, we have Darkus and Pyrus. And for this, we have two very special guests. These are Turbine Hades. So this one I got off somebody from Mexico, and this you will recognize from my Asia video. So I've got here a Ripcord, courtesy of Jordy. I want to buy as many of these as I can. And let's see some Revolution action. In particular with these, you really need to lean them in. They fixed this a lot with Gundalian, but for the new Vestroia ones, you really do have to lean them to get the effect. And now for the other one. It is an amazing purr. And something is that this is insane to have a 790 new Vestroia. They made a 800 G-Power cap where your Bakugan new Vestroia typically will not cross 800, and that was a gap broken by Gundalian. So I think it's absolutely astonishing to see a new Vestroia Bakugan at exactly 790. Like, they intentionally knew what they were doing, and it was just like a bonus way to sell these special attacks as, hey, they have some of the highest G-Powers in the game to date with a cool gimmick to make you buy it. Just one more time, please. Myriad Hades, Darkus, and Steel. As you can see, I don't waste my time like Alexis. I went straight for the two darkest ones. This one I had for quite a while, the Steel, but it has a really weak magnet, so I didn't really try too hard on this one. But I really went out of my way exclusively to get the pure darkest for the collection, just so that way I can say I had Hades Evolution. And he's got really tiny feet here, which I think is super cool. It's super interesting to have feet pop out from top to bottom, whereas all other feet is from bottom to up. I think that's just absolutely wicked. With a somewhat okay magnet, this one turned out to be better. I know there's a bajillion Myriad Hades, but I just wanted the darkest for collection and just call it a day. Altair, we have Ventus, and we have Oculus. And I will be kicking myself later if I realize I have more Altairs than this. I swear I did. This is so small. But you can't really talk about Altair without Wired, so just give me a sec. Alrighty, here we go. We have Helios and we have Ventus. I spent so long trying to find this guy. Oh my gosh, he took me forever to find him. Altair I had since I was a kid. They have two forms. One of the forms is the more iconic form. So Wired has these really special magnets in which he actually pivots his wing. So his wing can turn 360 degrees. So that's the first form, is we're going to turn this and we're going to turn his feet up 90 degrees. And this will attach onto, so if you see, it's going to sit on this hole right here. And this is more akin to the anime form. So these feet have little pegs and they're gonna fit right in there. And then the head just rests there. And this is regarded as the first form. This is very, very iconic to the anime form. And then to do the second form, which I believe was the one used by Spin Master in the packaging, it's the vertical form. So you are going to change Altair's feet vertical. There's like a little snap there, I think, like this. You're going to connect the feet with this second peg, and then you're going to connect Altair's feet with Wired, which Wired does have its own holes right there. So you're going to cross connect the two pegs together. And then you stand him like this. I do prefer the first form, but I will say the second form feels a lot... The second form is easier to pull off. It feels a little bit sturdier on the feet. But I absolutely love the creativity on this design of just little peg holes. Elico, just one. He is a very difficult Bakugan to get a hold of. It's not like you just randomly find Elicos in lots. I believe the Helios and the Subterra exist, but I'm still just overly impressed at how rare this guy is. I do think he's very good though, because I think he's got like a 680 G power, and so that kind of minimizes the effect of the attribute change randomness. I also love that his hands work separately, which I think is really cool, because if you look at another Bakugan like Vandarus, his hands are just tied there, so it's cheap. Last Elico, just the one. I don't waste time, as you see. Last Elico is kind of weird. I don't know why. His texture is very, very plasticky. It's got a very different texture from all of the other Bakugan, in which they are more just opaque. I don't really know how else to explain it, but this has real shine on it, while the others have a really dull. And I can't just tell if that's just the Japanese effect on it, or if it's something else. And I really like how he's one of the few Bakugan in which he has a crown. So his crown is separate from his head and it comes out. And I think that's a really cool feature. They also do this in Krakix, I think, in which you have to pull it out of the body. But I think that's such a cool feature. And then we have here Mystic Elico. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't even know much about him when I got him as a kid. I was just coincidentally happy that I got him in Aquas. And as you see, I still have the dice. I really preserved this really well inside of my container. So it just shocked me later when I heard how many people just like lost parts. And I was like, really? Wow, okay, because I never lost my dice. It's a very soft plastic, it's like resin, there's nothing difficult about it, but here you can see the 800 Gs. Super coveted, so as long as you could hit 800 or 700 or 650, which were all on the same side, you were fine. You just didn't want to hit like 450 or 400. but it doesn't jump too far. Oh, I got lucky, I got the 800. It's not like Chance Dragonoid, which I think really throws it out there. Never mind, I spoke too soon. Viper Helios, I have Aquas, and I have Pyrus. I gotta say though, elegant design. It is absolutely gorgeous. I just don't know why they're always so weak. Mine in particular though is Japanese. I purposely went out of my way to get the one with the orange feet because the orange feet were the ones that were produced in New Vestroia. But if you got the ones with the yellow feet, they are the ones produced in Gundalian, so they'll be like 700 Gs. But absolutely gorgeous design. Mine is a little flimsy on the wings though, but in retrospect to the seller, at the time that I got him, it was a good deal. So very, very happy. He took quite a long time for me to get. Orbit Helios. In the same collection that I got the Ultra Dragonoid High Typhoon, I also got myself an Orbit Helios. I am honestly astounded they never produced him in Pyrus. It just seems like an absolute shame. But his is quite gorgeous how big he is when he opens up. See these sharp blades coming out at opposite angles just to come slice you. Really screams to that Helios mentality. And if you pull them out, you should be able to pull out some little hands here as well. In fact, I'm surprised they even got to that concept. So you can kind of see the inspiration here with Viper, how he's got the long tail and then the wide wingspan, only here it's reversed. Something that I find pretty awe-inspiring about him is that he's got these shoulder blades. So in order for his hands to come out, these shoulder blades open up, which I think is really interesting because you don't normally see this in other Bakugan. Cyborg Helios, the one everyone had as a kid. Pyrus. Darkest Legacy. And a special guest here today, Turbine Helios. So once again, I'm going to pull out my ripcord and we're going to watch him spin. This one, however, has a very common issue in which the neck constantly releases, and there's just nothing you can really do about that. I'm not quite sure why. It's like the hook that they made is just barely not good enough to keep him closed. Super soft and quiet, but he opens up a lot, which I find really annoying. And that's fine. For how he is 640, you can just kind of replace him with like literally any other Helios. There's nothing too special about him. Very, very close to completing the original Maxus Helios, which is what we're going to be spending the next 10 minutes on, I guess. Foxbat, we have Ventus, Aqua's Legacy from Gundalian, Darkest Legacy from Gundalian, Darkest from New Vestroia, Chaos, and a Translucent Pyrus. I have to say here, the favorite one has to absolutely be the Gundalian Darkest, which is so sleek with the dark green. Quite rare in my opinion, but you might actually see him more often than you do the native Darkest. As you guys remember, this is the import I got from Ukraine. Thank you so much for that. And he is just a gorgeous beast, but I have to say I personally am more akin to the green, which is such a more mechanical green, so you get that industrial feel from him than you do with the purple. Spider Fencer, we have Battle Damaged Chaos and Translucent Chaos. I swear I have a Pyrus, but for the life of me I cannot find it. I will say this is a gorgeous design. The blue and the gold on the white on Translucent feels really royal. And just like the Aqua Spindle, it's 640 Translucent. It's not even that bad of an effect, right? It's a pretty decent Bakugan. Scrapper, we have Ventus, Darkest, and Clear. Some people call it Crystal in this era. My favorite one definitely has to be the Blue Clear. It is very pretty. You do not see them very often. The Maxus Helios pieces are worth quite a little bit in comparison to others because people want a complete clear Maxus Helios. Klawgor, we have Verias, Aquas, and Ventus. As you see here, this is the native one, native Ventus. Very, very happy to have this one just randomly through collections, but I will point out I do like the silver on the Pyrus. Typically you see more of a orange, so to get the silver on here really sells that mechanical feel to it. Spindle, we have Aquas and Aquas Translucent. For people who are long-time remembers of the channel, you will know this was episode 1 of the Baku Repair series. I really wish I could use them at some point just for being translucent. 660 Gs is not terrible, it's a pretty good one. I'm quite surprised myself, I've never had a chance to use him, but building Aquas decks is really difficult. I do have a Helios one on the way, very excited, just a quick sneak peek for those of you with the upcoming Asia collection purchase part 2. Leefram, just the one, just Darkest. But there's a particular reason for this, as you will soon see in a sec. Very, very pretty. I love how wide his mouth opens. I think this is just a sick 2000-esque design to just have a cannon in your mouth. It's so cartoonish, but it works in ball form. You've probably been wondering why I had so few Bakugan for the Maxus pieces, and that is because I had one very special mission. I always had Subterra Cyborg Helios when I was a kid, and I had always wondered, man, if they printed every single Maxus Helios, I want to see what a Subterra one is. And just so many of the pieces just fell on my lap just through random collections that I made it a goal to actually complete and see, hey, do they have all 6 attributes for Subterra? And the answer was yes. Foxbat, Spindle, Spider Fencer, Klawgor, Leefram, and Scrapper. I personally believe Scrapper is one of the rarest ones to find in native. So many have it as like a Baku Flip Chaos or something like that. So this is a true native Subterra Scrapper, and I'm so happy to finally have it. This was very elusive, and I believe it's one of the most elusive native Maxus Helios pieces. But yes, just through random collections, I got Foxbat, Spider Fencer, Klawgor, Leefram. So it was very easy for me to buy a collection with the last 2, and one collection I bought specifically for the Scrapper, nothing else, just so that way I could say I have the complete Subterra Helios. So just give me a little sec to build him and I will be right back. Ta-da! And you can see just how much detail they put into it. Every single piece has feet and everything is perfectly Subterra. I will be giving you guys 360 view because this is gorgeous and this is a proud achievement of my life to get the Scrapper, because this thing was absolutely terrible to find because I'm competing with the native Maxus Helios. Along with that, we have here Maxus regular Toys R Us Helios. So let's just get him built up while we're waiting to. I gotta say, I really do envy how soft the pieces are on the Maxus Helio versus the custom made one. In particular though, the Foxbat is very weak and flimsy. I'm not quite sure if this is the same for other people, but that one just falls apart like butter. But yep, this one was very difficult for me to find. I had to buy a collection with him. I did not get him as a kid. I had to go out of my way to find a collection with him and bid pretty high because Maxus Helios is a lot rarer than Maxus Dragonoid, if you didn't know. I'm just so happy to have the Subterra just because I always thought of that as a kid, just as I was picking up 2 Cyborg Helioses and a Subterra Foxbat. I was like, man, I want to try a mono one. And everyone wants to do Pyrus, and I was like, nah, I'm gonna be different. And of course, we cannot talk about Maxus Helios without talking about Maxus Dragonoid. So here we go. Let's just quickly run through them. Ventus Spit Arm, which can I just say he is absolutely gorgeous for how majestic he is as a stingray. Darkest Darkhound, and his brother Gracchus, Aqua's Graphius, Chaos Brachium, and Pyrus Spider Fencer. Give me a quick time to build this. I despise how difficult Maxus Dragonoid is. He is so difficult to assemble. In particular, when you fully assemble him, you have to turn backwards, and this is such a flimsy mechanic because as you see here, you have a swivel right there, and this swivel has to turn 360 degrees for you to turn one half to get the loose arm, because they have more space up here than they do the other direction. So you have to turn a trap backwards, and it is such a bizarre concept. You can also attach the Spider Fencer over to one of his arms, typically the right arm, but I'm just gonna leave it as is. I like it more as a backpack. You also get here the tail, so it pairs up better with the tail. Whether or not this actually is supposed to be out, I'm not sure, but I would rather have it out because dragons have tails. I gotta say though, for all the effort, he looks amazing, but he is such a pain to build. Maxus Helios is just so much easier. And also, it's just such an annoyance having to get all of the pieces because they only came in Maxus, so it's not like you can do anything creative with him. But the biggest thing is how many people lose this one, which I think is Spit Arm. It is just so hilarious how many of all the traps that you find in random lots, finding this one is always the struggle to vent this one. Absolutely gorgeous, just takes way too long to assemble. Moskeeto, I have here a Baku Core and a Baku Steel. The two are really similar when you look at them in design, but the only way how I can tell them apart is because of their horn. As you can see here, the core has the red one and the steel continues with the black one. I really want to use these guys so bad. It's such an interesting design too. Great way to make the buzzing wings. This one here in particular has 740, which is really strong. I just really want to use him. But under the G power cap, it's kind of difficult. And when you think about it, sometimes it's better just to have a translucent. Like, they couldn't print a standard one. Freezer, we have Subterra, and we have what I believe is Baku Core Darkest. So this was absolutely one of my favorite designs, and I still to this day still want to get a Chaos version, but oh well. Anyhow, if you have never owned a freezer before, these guys actually have a button. So this part always confused me, and I still don't know why. I only picked up freezer like 2 years ago, barely. As a matter of fact, you should remember this one. It's one of my first episodes. It was my first short. So you can also release the legs with the button. And I think that's so absurd, having a Bakugan have a alternate way to pop open. I really want to use them so bad, but this one's 530 and this one is 700, so I can use this one. I just haven't had a good reason to. We haven't done enough new Vestroia brawls, so I really want to in the future. I really love this guy. He's probably one of my favorite new Vestroia designs. Abis Omega. I have battle damaged Pyrus, battle damaged Subterra, and regular Atmos. It is so astounding. I have to double check my collection and see if I have the Abis Omega battle damaged. It is so impressive to see me have the regular one, as you can tell by the green paints. The battle damaged ones don't carry any paint on them. But I remember this from Jet Kuso's episode of the most exotic Bakugan, and this one really stood out to me. He was absolutely right. I love the design, the simplicity, the vertical build on this Bakugan, the use of the half spring to make it taller, the functional mouth. It is an absolutely gorgeous design where it's not like the other Bakugan. While the other Bakugan tried to simulate and condense body parts of a Bakugan, because he's just a serpent, it is so easy to just build him as a serpent and not have to deal with any of the weird components like legs or feet. Stug, I have just the one. Battle damaged Chaos. And I have to say, I love him. I wish I had more of him. He's such a rare Bakugan. The concept is so interesting, having here, for example, the pincher and both posable heads, but having one pincher stronger than the other one because he's based on like a lobster, having the shell to hide himself, and then most importantly, it's uneven. This concept of having a uneven Bakugan is just so interesting. I want to get more of him. I believe Pure Aquas was released in Japan only, so really I don't care if I get him Aquas or Aquas Battle Damaged. It's just such a really interesting design that's really unique and really can emphasize the amphibious parts of him. Vandarus, I have here Aquas, and I have here Subterra. Really good substitute as a heavy metal though, because all the heavy metals are virtually the same. You really do not find a difference. So as long as you have any heavy metal around 650, they're all interchangeable with the heavy metal cards. So I can clearly see how they produced Vandarus to be the cheap copy. If you were unable to afford a Alpha Hydronoid or a Delta Dragonoid, you could at least afford a Vandarus, and it would be really easy for you to get access to the heavy metals. And they still feel cold to the touch to this day. Verias, we have Aqua's Battle Damaged, we have Aqua's Translucent, and we have Clear. I also used to have a Ventus one as a kid, but I sold it. I think this one was one of my oldest ones too. I had the Ventus and I had the Clear one. I also love how they embed the feet. The feet are inside of these horizontal arms and you can pull them out. And I think that's such a cool design, although I am utterly perplexed by it because he's a vertical standing monkey and yet his whole body is horizontal. That just kind of threw me off as a kid. But I absolutely love this design. It's so simple. Again, I just feel like it would make sense if Verias was like a sitting monkey, but he's usually crouched or standing. So I don't personally agree with this approach, but I love how they were able to incorporate the four hands and feet. Atmos. Here we have Darkest Atmos. And here we have Darkest Translucent Atmos. This is, to date, one of my favorite new Vestroia designs. I love me my long boys. This one and Abis Omega are in deep contention, and I would love to collect as many of them as possible. Especially this one being the translucent. It is absolutely gorgeous. The pieces are so thin, you can see right through them like glass. And it's just such a beautiful design. It's also perfect for battle gear. If I just had some battle gear and just go boop. Absolutely gorgeous. I swear these are European exclusive. You never find them. That's why I went out of my way to hunt the darkest one. Just because Ventus doesn't exist. And these two are in particular a little bit more difficult. You know, you can find Pyrus and Aquas very easily, but you cannot find Darkest and I think Chaos. They tend to be difficult. Of New Vestroia, I love him the most, and he's 710, so it's like, he's not even bad. He's a really good Bakugan. I could almost use this even in Gundalian format. Next up is Baliton. I have here Subterra and Ventus. Although mine are a little stiff, bear with me. I think I bought a lot purposefully just for the Subterra once upon a time, and lo and behold, I really have not seen any more afterwards. He's pretty common though. But I'm happy I got him when I got the chance because I do not find enough excuses to get him. Hexstar, the mechanical Baliton. He works really well. I never have a problem opening or closing him. I will say though, this is one of the weird ones in which he has default attributes. So because he always changes to Darkest Pyrus, this is a Pyrus Hexstar turning into a Pyrus. Super trippy about that. I do have a Chaos one, I think in order. I think it's in Asia. You just have to search for him, but when you do, he's usually pretty cheap, so happy to at least get the Chaos one. Carl's not very memorable one. I do not think there is a trap more produced than this guy. I've only ever seen him in Pyrus. I've had this one since I was a kid. I believe he was my first trap. Not even kidding. His closing mechanism is super weird because he's got some sides with the spikes and then some sides without. So it's like the ones without the clips go on top. Something like that. And then you have 3 hands which close. Very reminiscent if you've ever tried to close Zenthon or Zenthon Titan. It's kind of a very similar mechanism where he holds himself in. I think Aquas is canon, but I gotta admit you never see it. Scorpion, I have the Aquas, the Ventus, and the Pyrus. So Scorpion is one of the ones that I fixed on the Baku Repair series. This little guy over here, I believe. Something to take note is that it's very easy for the, if your tail is loose, it is very possible for this wire to just fall off. Usually it's more secure and down the line like this one, but it's very possible for it to sometimes just bend and then it comes off. So if your tail's ever broken, that's the easy way to fix it. And not much to say about this, but I do have his evolution, which I have a lot more to say about. Fire Scorpion, as you guys saw in my recent short, just came from Europe. People like to consider him the evolved form of Scorpion. And something that's interesting is that he's got 2 little fangs that pop out, 2 manual fangs that pop out, I guess, to kind of emphasize that scorpionness. And something that's really interesting is that he has this hidden, like, gimmick in which he can launch your Bakugan. So here you pull it from the back. Mine's pretty stiff. I don't pull it all the way, I pull it like 90% of the way. And then you should be able to push it and that'll launch this backboard. So here I've got a little Pyro Helios. So it works to a limited extent. But if you open it like all the way, you might block it, so don't try to do it all the way. Just do it enough. And if it does get stuck, his horn is kind of like a little button. So it's kind of like a soft reset button. But you should be enough to just push it manually to launch it by itself. And Metal Fencer, I have here Ventus and Pyrus. I gotta say, I love how the feet come horizontally down. So they do this little curve instead of like Spider Fencer, which just comes straight down. I think it makes it look more elegant and create that angle design. He's also got 4 little feet right here. which I just love the attention to detail, like they didn't have to. And then lastly, he's also got a pincer up here, so that's really cool. That's real attention to detail there. And he's got two pegs, so both of these pegs, this one and this one, they work on both Cyborg and Viper. I personally like Cyborg, but we'll just see both of them. So because of the way how the tail is on Viper, I think he only fits it one way, which I think is the back peg. So I think this is the only realistic way for you to attach them on to that peg hole. But I like that they still gave him the option to connect both. I believe in the anime, I think he put some on something like this or like this. But in the real toy, they put it on the bottom front, so you have to tie it like this. So that is the Viper Helios way. Again, I think it looks more elegant in the tails on the bottom side, but they really just messed up there. And then as for the Cyborg, same hole that you use for the Foxbat. So you can tie it like this, and I think because his feet are smaller, it looks just a little bit better. Oh, you can't really access this peg at all, can you? Okay, interesting. But this peg is more flexible on him, so I think this is my favorite way to do it, which is the tail down, because with the tail down, then you can actually stand. And so that just seems to match better to what the original intent was, because you can't do that on the Viper. Dynamo, I have here the Ventus, the Aquas, and the Helios. The Helios took a surprisingly long time for me to find. Ventus was pretty easy. I love his design, just like all the other fencers. He's got posable feet that come out. I love how New Destroyer really cared about their individual feet, so just the ability to like hold them all out like an actual spider. And something that's a really fun fact is that although he fuses with Alto Brontes, he doesn't in the game, but he still has the peg for it, so it seemed like a lost design thing. They have this with all of the other Maxus traps, where they have the peg for you to insert it, but if you look at your normal Alto Brontes, there's no peg hole for you to insert it underneath, but that's the intention, was that they still prepared it anyways in case they got that feature, which I think is really cool. I like how they went with like the sixes between Dynamo and Fencer. These six-legged creatures just really appeal and do something that none of the other generations do. He's also the most interesting one to fold, in which when you do the 4, then you have the middle 2 legs lock the 4 legs, so that's how you keep him shut. Absolutely gorgeous design. Eyelash, we have here the Pyrus and the Ventus. Finding the Ventus takes forever, it's virtually impossible. I can never find them, at least in English. The Pyrus one is so common in comparison. For some reason, this one and Ingram are like really hard to find in English, more than the others. People have joked around that if you use this this gap in his armor, you can like slide the Ingram tail in there, and so it looks like he fuses. But it doesn't. I've tried it and it just doesn't really work. I think the easier thing is just to imagine Cosmic Ingram as like the bird instead of having to try to fuse, because you know they like to fuse all the traps. I just don't think a fusion really works with this one that makes sense, even though that's what they depict in the anime. Triad El Condor, I have the Helios and the Ventus. I'm very happy about the Ventus. I think more people associate it with the Subterra though, because it just makes more sense for El Condor, but I associate it so much with Kumba, I prefer the Ventus one, honestly. Also, Did anybody else know that it was Triad, not Tripod? I swear since a kid I've been calling it Tripod my entire life. Triad Sphinx. I have here the Pyros and the Subterra. I've never had either of these when I was a kid. These are both from collections. But I have to say, I love how they built in the pyramid into it. I swear, for being such a perfect use of the trap, I genuinely do not know why this one didn't make it into the anime. It's just the pyramid shape on it looks so good, and then they had the Egyptian symbols on there as well. Very well designed. Tripod Epsilon, we have the Helios, the Ventus, Pyros, and Aquas. Man, I am so perplexed at how they juxtaposed this cute little frog guy versus what you actually get in the anime on screen. It's just a little bit jarring. Just how different it is, because this looks adorable. Sphinx looks cool. Theta looks really aggressive. So you look at Epsilon and it's like, oh my god, what a cute tadpole. And then he comes up on screen and like, wow, he's like some old sage. That always caught me as a kid, but yeah, that one just really surprised me. Is like, wow, that's like totally different than the toy, unlike most of the other traps. Tripod Theta, we have the Pyros and the Aquas. This one was a real challenge. Theta Aquas is only in Japanese only, so it was a real struggle for me to find this. He looks beautiful. I love the blue accents and gold really works well on him. The beard especially makes it feel like Atlantis. And yeah, as you can see, there's the MG there for the Japanese. I got this one I think for 20, which I think is pretty good for it. Absolutely gorgeous. I think I actually had the Pyros when I was a kid, but I don't think the attributes work with the card, so that's why I never used them. Val can fly, just Darkest. I didn't bother buying any other ones. And in general, they're just so rare you don't find them at all. I think there's like an Aquas one, I think. Absolutely gorgeous. I have to thank Jose for this. The only manual parts here are just the feet. And so many of the other Falcon flies have their tail broken, so I had to make sure that it had the working tail on there. Not the steel one, just the plastic one. You can tell by the lack of steel. Although I do look, and just in case I ever do see one. And I love how you can just sit Percival on here. You don't even need to have a peg for him. He just sits right there. I gotta say though, the interesting part though is when you close him, you have to fold the two fronts first, and then you have to weave the wings in. The wings have two parts, so you close this flap down as you close it, and then you do the same thing here. Inner wing, and then you interlace the top parts. Such a weird design, but absolutely gorgeous in the execution. Fortress. So here I have Darkest and Aquas. I gotta say, the number of fortresses that have broken on me is just absurd. There is a ton, and it's always the same problem. I think it's gotta be with this. The magnet is supposed to pull down this bar, and it's just unable to. So because it can't open the bar, then it can't open up the fortress. And it's like, this is such a recurring problem. I didn't have 2 or 3 fortresses like this, and it's just like a problem I want to fix on the Baku Repair series. Just haven't had time to. Zoak, just the one, just Chaos. Luckily I consider him only canon attribute as Chaos anyways. Only one attribute, which is kind of weird, like Carl's not, but his card is kind of okay. His card allows you to nullify all gate bonuses, so it's like, it's a good like evenly matched card that like, okay, just nullify everything. The precursor for Fortress, I guess, or Piercian. Speaking of Piercian, we have the Pyros, the Subterra, and the Helios. I actually think I had the Helios one for a long time. I think the other two were like more recent additions. I definitely did not have the Subterra, but I think I actually did have the Helios right off the bat. Just like some of the other ones, he's got 2 on the feet, but I have to say, I never noticed he had a 3rd attribute this entire time, and it's true. All the Piercians have a 3rd attribute on the leg, and I'm just like, why did they do this? Like, it's just so easy to miss. Even this is like very small fonts. It's like, I never knew Piercian had 3 attributes. It could have been anywhere else more obvious. Like, Pythanthus. This is a really recent one, and you can tell it is by how skinny it is. I've never owned one, but he appears on so many cards. Like, I want to get a Darkest Pythanthus because that's what always shows up. So he does the Darkest, Helios, and Subterra, which is pretty good, but I like that unlike Legionoid, he's just so much easier to close. That's literally all he has to him, is you just roll him up like a cheese roll. Super easy in comparison to the other ones. We get to deal with all the little heads. Legionoid, we have Helios and Pyrus. And you know it's Legionoid because he's got all of his little miniature heads, and this is like such an annoyance for you to like just open up. And I think even when you look at the actual model, I think Legionoid only has like 1 head that opens 6. But it's not as obvious as like Hexa does. But he's just a little bit clunkier to close than Pythanthus if you don't close in all the heads. Hexados, Subterra. You remember this from my episode from the Asia trip. And you can see just the very minimalistic change here with the shields. And there is the slight MG on the bottom, although mine is pretty faded out, not that I care. And I love that the big difference between this and Legionoid is the fact that it has 4 heads and you pop out the tail and the last head. So these are locked into place and you have to like pop them up from the bottom, I find to be easier. So 1, 2. Something that's really cool is that he's got 1, 2, 3, 4 attributes on here, so depending on your Hexados, he might even cover 5 or 6 attributes. I'd like to say thank you again to all the fans. I know this was a really long video. Oh my god, Gun Daily, it's gonna be so long. It is so much editing for me, but I do it for the fans, so hope you guys enjoyed it. And we're on the road to 500. I can't wait for the day that we finally get there and I get to show off all of my collection.